What's good YouTube? And welcome to the house. There's something I've noticed in the community more recently, the past couple of years so to speak, that people would rather talk about Yu-Gi-Oh! Than play Yu-Gi-Oh! A lot of the times. You'll ask them to duel, and they'll even find it semi-tedious. And it doesn't come down just to the deck you're playing. Yeah, I don't want to play True Draco for the 200th time. No, they get to the point where they think they've figured out their decks and how it reacts to situations. They've spent so many hours on it, and they're like, yeah, I'm just waiting until the next event. But then they'll sit down and have hours of conversations with you, be it about the ban list and the state of the game, the upcoming master rule, and this is coming from a guy who makes a living out of talking about Yu-Gi-Oh! But I tend not to tire of it in my live streams. There'll be a point where I want to watch some Yu-Gi-Oh! Rather than just play, but there's never a point where I want to just put my cards down and not accept a challenge or a duel. And I was talking to Billy about this, and he commentated some YCSs somewhat recently, and he said he's noticed the same things even at the top level of the game, where used to, when pros had arguments the night before the YCSs, they would throw down, slam their decks down, and figure out what theory was actually right or where things were running into each other. And I understand wanting to keep tech secret, but they're out loud saying their strategies in the conversation, and they want just iron it out and figure it out. They say, oh yeah, we'll figure it out tomorrow, whoever does best, that kind of thing. And either they both top, oh, handshakes all around, we were both right, or it's they both scrub, none of them make it. It really doesn't seem to come to a head. People tend to not turn in their deck list day one in case they figure things out, but it's like talking about things rather than seeing things. Theorio has come to this forefront at the top level of the game, and I feel like it does spread down from there into the casuals and semi-competitives. Let's just go ahead and jump into this conversation as a full. The ban list is not a bad thing to talk about, but as a Yu-Gi tuber, I find it like talking about the weather, the state of the game, what's going on, how is the weather out there, is kind of what it comes down to. And there can be very fruitful things that come from these conversations. People currently want orchestrated babble banned for being able to go Orcus combo, and people are even figuring out ways to, recycle the babble. It has its own effect, but really get max value out of it. And the way some people reacted to that is, instead of running Twin Twisters, now they side Cosmic Cyclone, and they just take care of the problem throughout the rest of the game. Non-destruction, banishing. Pretty good against Orcust and handling babble. And maybe it is the state of the game that causes at times discussion to rise to the forefront. When we look at Striker Orcust, it has been around for a bit more time now as a deck. Orcust was on its own as a deck, Striker on its own. Now it's combined, and you have decks that have lasted a lot longer. It's being quoted as the eternal format, but it's not just the last year that this has been happening. It's been a while now that people are less apt to playing and more apt to just talking to you about the game. And I think that's a problem, because when you get into the niche interactions of the game itself, you only figure out certain things by testing, and you figure out, hey, where do I drop this hand trap? Not just through Theorio, where am I getting baited versus where might this be a choke point? Is that Pot of Desires bait, or do I drop this here on the Desires? May they have no chance. Did they play it early enough to where they could hurt their game and resources, or do they have a Dragonic Diagram maybe in hand or something else? You figure out through only testing the kinds of possibilities and situations you run into, rather than just regurgitating what you've seen and heard. And that comes down again to other hand traps like Nibiru. Where are they going to go ahead and make the Apollosa? Where should I drop my Nibiru? Is this a deck that likes to make it late in combo? Could they be reading that I actually have the Nibiru? Have they seen me maybe in previous rounds playing it? Is it locals where everybody knows I'm playing it? You figure these things out only through the metal of trying to test, and not talk. Now, there are definitely good things about talking. I'm not telling you to shut up and play. I'm telling you that in addition to your long discussions through the love of the game, you've got to play the game to rise up to those next levels. One of the hardest things for players is side decking. They want to figure out their ratios in their side deck and what to take out in the main, but really getting that down to a science doesn't come down to pen and paper. It comes to actually testing what you like to side out, what stops you from clunking, what's a problem to take out of your deck, and what cannot leave the deck in certain situations. You find that only through testing out the situations. What do I take out against this matchup? I haven't played out against this much. How do I take out this for Pankratops? You figure that out only through making sure by playing, not just in theory, this should work. And you do hear that the most, I think, from pros in their deck profiles, that when they get into an event, I wanted to try this and it was garbage, I put it in last second, or I put this in last second and it was amazing, MVP won me the event. Because throughout the tournament, you get multiple rounds to try. The pros are likely to capitalize on mistakes more because of testing than other people, and they advance, adapt, and make sure they figure out what to take out faster. But if you're not getting to, those 8 hours, 10 hours a week to try to play on Yu-Gi-Oh! Not a week, a day, by the way, the famous Hoban quote, 40 hours a week getting ready for nationals, I'll be there. I feel like that's where it really comes down to, is the real going into those zones that gives the extra edge on a competition. Let's also talk about a different format, or a couple different formats actually. When we go back, Striker was dominant, it got hit on a couple lists, and we also got Salmon Greats in the meta. One thing that rose to the forefront of the meta is Shared Ride. Where did that come from? Did it come from just discussions on the ban list and what's going on and around? No, it came from, alright, this was an X meta, I've played this before, does it work here again? And then the best players end up using it throughout part of that metagame. And discussions can help and hurt community-wide. Let's put a place where it's actually helped, and that's Firewall Dragon. Do you think if the community didn't come together around this problem card, yes, it was the problem card, I don't want to hear otherwise, FTKs disappear after. You can start going after Cannon Soldier, X card, Y card, but this is the facilitator, this is the root of the problem, the root of the tree, and once it was chopped down, Yu-Gi-Oh! Got way more balanced and clear. But there's also been points where that discussion kind of goes to a bad place. Let's actually go to Pepe format. Pepe got axed in just a couple of weeks, it feels like, and Cosmo didn't have the chance to prove itself, where Yuri Diaz takes top 4 at Atlanta in that format, shocking everybody. People called Tin Can a bad card towards its release. Think about that for a moment. Something that can tag out, dodge, Veiler, and also just do so much. They were calling it bad towards the beginning of its release, and he showed them all up. He showed what this could do, and Big Untargetable Ships were a household name for a long time. One of the biggest Facebook groups revolved around this deck, even coming back into Zoo format where people stopped testing against it, and then you get Johnny's top at a regional. Whiptail definitely hurts Cosmo a lot, by the way. That's how you answer, but people just weren't prepared for those tag outs where they're gonna get hit, where Dark Destroyer is gonna yeet on them. So I feel like through testing and conversations is where you get the best of both worlds. It's where you figure out what to do to Babel, and where Twin Twisters goes out the window, destroying more back row or taking care of your primary matchup. That's where you figure it out, is the actual playing through these tournaments, figuring out what's going on, and not just the pen and paper. But discussions, they are good, they are bad. The ban list, again, I feel like it's kind of like the weather. How's it going out there? But people would rather talk about that all day long than pick up a deck and play with you sometimes. And that's what's bugging me, I suppose. Let me know what you guys think of this conversation. It's been weighing on my mind for some times, and I do think there's a lot that you can talk about what you love, even if you're not a player. So it comes down to communities like Smash Brothers and Melee. You talk about how people can do these technical things, but you can't do them yourself. With Yu-Gi-Oh!, everybody that understands the game at a level where you're playing in a YCS or regional, I feel like you understand a lot of what's going on, or when something happens to you, you understand and you can retain it. It's not the most difficult thing in the world. Once you've learned the core mechanics, And that's why I take issue to the not testing it out and playing it out. If you're going out to these events, you're spending the time and money on decks and learning them. I feel like you can get to that extra level, and you're choosing not to on some fronts. But then again, maybe you're just a fan of the game, and you're going out to have a good time with friends. I do hear that quite commonly too, but I hear these same people saying, man, I was so close to topping, I wish I could top, I wish I could, do this. And you can. All it comes down to is putting that work in and putting the grind, the pedal to the metal. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Give this video a thumbs up if you did enjoy this conversation. Like I said, I feel like side decking, one of the biggest issues in the game for a lot of people, that also comes down to just trying out cards with friends over and over that are better at the game. And any pro will talk down and tell you their theory on how they reach their cards usually. They're typically very, very nice and open to explanation. You can take that knowledge of conversation and then try it out for yourself and see if it works for you or not, because not everything will translate to your area, your meta, or the entire meta in general. It just happens. So yeah, get back out there playing, guys. I know that we do have a ban list coming up. I know that there is a new master rule coming up, but playing is so crucial to this game.